So I'd like to just introduce Jim Shields. Many of you know him because of his substantial practice here in Milwaukee. He is FAIA and a design principal at HGA Architects and associate professor of architecture here at UW-M School of Architecture and Urban Planning. Jim was elected to fellowship in the American Institute of Architects in the 2010 Design Excellence Program. Election to fellowship not only recognizes the achievements of architects as individuals, but also their significant contribution to architecture and society on a national level. Jim has maintained an active practice designing public buildings, and his design leadership at HGA has been honored with over a dozen design awards from the AIA Wisconsin for such projects as the Discovery World Museum and the Butterfly Vivarium at the Public Museum. And today, he was awarded the Business Journal's Real Estate Award for the West Bend Museum of Wisconsin Art, which I think he'll talk to us about today. So that's another kudos that we can add to his long list. Jim has also received a number of national design awards for religious architecture for built work such as the St. Boniface Church in Mequon, the St. Norbert's College Chapel, and the Milwaukee Catholic Cathedral. These projects embrace a kind of elegant simplicity, often integrating leading-edge engineering technology, regional materials, and a use of daylighting. Many of you know him, as I do, also as a faculty member here at UW-M, and his teaching includes graduate and undergraduate level design studios, including the Comprehensive Studio, where he has taught students a wide spectrum from the value of programming to the value of detailing. And he has regularly taught one of our required building construction courses, and I know that many of you have restructured your schedules to enroll in his class. Jim has also served as SARUP's exhibitions curator for many years, organizing more than 25 exhibitions on contemporary architecture in the upper Midwest. And as for Jim's scholarship, he is also the author of two books, The Cities of James Duane Doty and Architectural Representation. But I know him as his office mate, and so I'm kind of in a unique position to tell you a little bit about him personally. And I really jumped at the chance to introduce him today. So I can provide you with a kind of unique or special perspective. I'd like to just say a few words about him personally and beyond these professional accolades. First, he leads people to believe that I'm the messy one, but in fact, I simply absorbed this from the master himself, and you should see the pile of drawings in the corner of the room at the moment. So, and I was going to show a picture of that, but the screen is not up. Second, Jim has a very wry sense of humor, which can cut right to the bone. Some of you may have experienced this when he was a critic on your review, for example. Last year, he served as a critic on my review for a dormitory building project, and he very quickly deduced that the student was very unpopular in the dormitory life, and that was why the social spaces in his project were very impoverished. And he came right out, said it, everybody understood. And in the context of a very dense faculty meeting, he is often the one who cuts right to the chase. He is able to size up a situation faster than you can blink. He'll tell us, well, the problem is that you have no money. This quality really makes him loads of fun when we're trying to figure out the truth in a certain kind of gossip. But mostly it demonstrates how quick a read he is on any given subject matter, architectural or otherwise. And third, perhaps most seriously, I know Jim as a person who is deeply moved by the discipline and transformative power of architecture. He returns from a trip to the West Coast where he sees a Williams and Chen project, and he has the glee of a kid in a candy store. Jim imagines the full range of an architect to command multiple scales and technical issues, all the while deeply knowledgeable about building type and history. His bandwidth for typology is remarkable and encyclopedic, and his sketching hand doesn't stop. His passion for architecture and the telescopic role that the architect must play means that he never shies away from being a lifelong student of architecture. and this quality makes his teaching and his being always fresh and insightful. I feel very fortunate to have shared an office with him for so many years, and I'm very glad that he's speaking to us today. Thank you. Please welcome Jim Shields.
Thank you, Grace. Let's see if we make this work. Yeah, do you know how we're going to get our first slide up here, guys? There we go. Thanks, Gil. Just two comments before I begin here. One, when the dean first asked me to do both an exhibit and a lecture in fall, I think he mentioned that the main reason for some event here was in part to celebrate a book which we've recently published here at the university about 10 buildings that I've done in the last 12 years or so. And so it serves as a kind of companion to this lecture, for those of you who might, in the unlikely event you'd like to know more. But we have a couple copies in our little reading room down the hall that you can access free. And also we managed to figure out how the co-op can sell these things. And all the proceeds would go to purchase new books, new titles for our reading room. So if you have an interest in acquiring the book, you know where the money's going. And sadly, I'll get none of it. But that's a good thing. I think also, as Grace mentioned, dovetailed with this lecture tonight is an exhibition that covers different territory than I want to cover tonight. And so I really won't be talking about much of anything that's covered in this lecture, or I won't be covering the material in this exhibit, and you can look at it on your own. It's actually based on the idea of one of my sons, my oldest, Drew, who's currently an art student out east. When I was kicking around ideas for this exhibit, he was the one who suggested that I take one building and actually show you all of the schemes, there are 9 of them, that went before the final building. And I think normally architects, we tend to hide this and are embarrassed by it in some way, because there's a kind of, you'll see at moments in the exhibit, there's like scratching around in the dirt blindly, searching for a direction. And who wants to admit that you ever did that? But I think architectural education involves moments like that, and I'd like you to have an opportunity to see that show and go through about an 8-year timeline and see 9 schemes that are there, and then leading up to the building that's slightly documented in the exhibit. But tonight, what I'd like to look at is actually 2 buildings in particular. The finished work of the Museum Wisconsin Art that is now a finished building and is set to open April 3rd in West Bend, Wisconsin. So you would, if you're interested, also have an opportunity to travel up there starting in early April and see that new art museum. And it's a very interesting collection, by the way, as it opens in April 3rd. And second tonight, I'd like to look at a speculative project, one that's on the boards, another museum project for the Milwaukee Art Museum. And it involves, as you'll see, a plan for the reinstallation of their permanent collection. But let me see if I can, do we dim these podium lights? Not really, huh? We got lights on the screen, don't we, Gil? We can leave that one on. 4 lights down. This one? You got it? Thanks so much. Okay. Yeah, I haven't lectured in this room for a little while, especially these ones on the screen. The first project I mentioned I want to talk about is the completed building for the Museum of Wisconsin Art in West Bend. And I'm showing West Bend, Wisconsin here with north up. West Bend, many of you may not be familiar with, has at its core the Milwaukee River. And right up here at the top of the screen, you can see that this is actually the western bend of the river, when the river finally turns to the north and changes its course, and West Bend is named after a bend in the Milwaukee. West Bend has its downtown right here, with Highway 33 at the top of the screen, which is an important arrival part for people arriving via Highway 43 from the east or 41 from the west, arriving generally on Highway 33 here and crossing the river. Currently, the museum is located right here in a colonial revival former insurance company building, which has an intimate but frequently grim place to look at art. Over time, as you can see, the museum eventually decided to leave their existing building. And the painful process of that I document step by step in the exhibit. But finally, the museum landed at a city-owned parcel here, of which they bought a triangle across the river from downtown West Bend, on a site that had just one vacant furniture mart, but has been vacant fields for most of the life and remains so, other than the new building here, and one old renovated train station on an old railway line that is today a bike trail. Close by the banks of the Milwaukee River, as it were here. One of the things you can get a sense of as I zoom in on this site plan here is that this featured a series of rectangular parcels by and large, and you can sense that in a slight bend in the river, after which West Bend is named, the parcel the museum bought gets cleaved off and becomes a very pointy, acute triangle of a site. And the red shape that you see there is the final footprint of the building. So you can get a sense that the footprint of the building and the shape of the site are intimately related in this case. And this is very much a building that's about its site. And in that regard, I would say that in large part, what I'm searching for as an architect, as a designer, is for a moment where there is a simultaneous solution of both site issues and a client's desires and programs. Like searching for a singular solution that does both of these things at once, resolves the unique and significant issues of the site, and resolves those same sorts of issues as resolving the client's needs with a singular solution that does both at once. And I'll try to give you a sense today of what that is about for me. To the south is more speculative city-owned parcels where the city will be building parking. They've built this parking for us right now, and they'll be selling these lots for future buildings to unknown tenants all along this riverfront road here, which is called Memorial Drive, on the east side of the river in downtown. One of the things that I did as part of this project, I did an aggressive series of diagrams. And I want you to know that I definitely present these to my clients. I'm not the sort of architect that, maybe we can find a way to dim this podium light. Is that this one? Where it says don't touch, right? Yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and tell me when I'm dim enough. How's that, right? Yeah, all the way. I knew you'd say that. I show drawings like this to my clients, and I'm not ashamed to show them to them. These are the sort of diagrams you might be asked to do in a studio here. And you might expect I'll never show this to a client, but I really do. The first diagram shows the rectangular solid that the gridded layout of the lots initially suggested. And the basic act here was this carving or cleaving away that's really been caused by the meander of the river. That is, as the river, recognized by this red arrow here, diving diagonally through the city with a bend at the bottom, as it passes through the grid of the city, it's the force that carves the major shape of the building. And so for me, this shape not only fit the lot, but it was a shape that fit this diagonal passage of the river and the slight bending of the river at the bottom of the screen, and produced the shape of the building. And so in that way, it's a really unique fit to the site in that sense. But this is the basic form of the building. That is, there's a singularity to it. There's a singular form. And I have to guess that I might be the only architect in the room that's willing to do a single form for a building today. That is, the vast majority of buildings being a composure of 5 or 6 forms all jammed together or interlocking with each other. And that leads to my second observation about my practice, and that I'm searching for, as Grace mentioned, the simplest, most elegant, reductive form I can find. And this, I think, is something that's different than normal practice today, in that I think a long time ago I read an article about the process of scientific discovery and research, and a great scientist saying something like, oh, we were pretty sure we hadn't come up with a solution because it wasn't simple. Because we all know that when we find the right solution in science, it is extremely simple and it's very elegant. And they use those terms interchangeably in the sciences. And if you ever find yourself say, I know I haven't found the solution because it's not super complicated and fussy yet, in my view, you're off track. You know, so that's a sense that I have about the work and what I'm really searching for. Having produced this simple form, I went about, in this case, a series of removals or a series of excavations from the form. And the first one is this major removal at the corner. And there are 2 or more goals to it. One is internal, producing the condition of entry, and also a place where a major internal atrium has a chance to breathe. And I think I dot that atrium in here, a 2-story atrium for major civic events. And you can enter that atrium directly, and we have a kind of a description of the volume of that. But also, this is a place where we can look downstream along the river's length. It's one thing to look directly out at a narrow river, but it's often a thing of beauty to look down the length of a river and see a 3/4 to a mile of length of the water. And that's what this first aperture is about, in addition to creating a condition of entry. So again, I'm looking for solutions that are both solutions to site conditions and solutions to site or to the client's program. There are other apertures that were cut here. For example, this one, it allows a view of the only building on my site that is a very handsome, restored 19th century train station, that you get a delightful little glimpse out of this one aperture, and it also serves to daylight and have other important relations to the interior planning in this building. There's also a long aperture that's cut here, just a 1-story tall, very long opening, and it's relating directly down to the river and to West Bend's downtown across the river. So as you move through the main single-loaded circulation on the first floor, you're constantly allowed to reference the river, which is quite beautiful and tree-lined and lined with stone cliffs and retaining walls with the historic fabric of the city across the river. And at the other end of the building is another major removal where the corner of the building is excavated, as it were, and produces another platform, in this case a major stairway, where we use this landing as a platform to look upstream, where there's a mill pond and a dam and a great widening of the river. And you're able to look upstream for, I think, 1.25 miles and experience the river valley in that direction. And also see Highway 33 and address it as the major entry point into the city. At this point, there's an additive notion that inserted down into the volume of the building are a series of parallel wall planes. In this case, 30 foot on center, being kind of ideal for the sort of galleries that they wanted to produce here. And what's interesting about this triangular form is it dovetails quite closely with the program for galleries I was asked to accommodate. That has a very difficult program that lent from teeny little galleries that were about pre-white settlement Native American art all the way to a very large changing gallery and everything in between. A series of historical galleries that gradually diminished in size the older they got, because of the diminishment of the size of the collection. And the first time I showed a triangular building, the museum curator said, "This will never work." And I showed him the plan of the galleries, and he said, "Boy, does this work." So again, we had a solution where there's a formal solution to the site conditions and a programmatic solution at the same time. And the museum curator also suggested that these planes might be different colors to better work with the different historical periods. And that's something you see has been executed, but a new director may change directions on that, and I think I can talk about that a little later on. One of the things that you can see in the exhibit down the hall is this model, and it helps really to articulate this flow of the Milwaukee River here. And I can also say that even though it's kind of a fairly desolate landscape, this is all surface parking at the back of these buildings, the Milwaukee River has managed to assert a kind of natural grandeur in this little river valley here. The river is crystal clear most of the year and flowing over golden limestone and gravel. And you can see the bottom in 2-3 foot of water and actually see fish on occasions. And there are a series of existing pedestrian bridges that cross the river, some of which are very conveniently located, as you can sense here. And these steep little bluffs also have become tree-lined over time. And it is really a charming thing, more than enough of a feature to sort of hang your hat on, as it were. And in this model, which has a clear top to it, you can also get a real sense of the composition that I was just talking about. These apertures, and you can get a sense of how they address the river in different ways. Establishing a monumental stairs here, atrium, and a secondary monumental stairs there, and the series of planes that produce these reducing galleries that hover freely within the volume of the building. And I'll talk more about the architectural development of those planes in a moment. You can also get a sense of the pronounced curvature of the river here and how that is reflected in a moment of curvature in the building. That turns out to be an important moment as you rise up to the galleries on the second floor within this building. One of the things that clients can really do for you is they can help you produce the biggest architectural drawing that you've ever seen. This is actually part of a marketing effort that my very cool clients at the museum, Wisconsin Architect, at this point led by Director Tom Lidke, today new Director Lori Winters, and the very fine board members that they have an opportunity to work with there. And I think a board member actually came up with the idea of marking out the building in sport field chalk on the lawns of the site here, in such that donors could be walked through the building. You could walk through the different galleries and walk the circulation spaces of the building. So that is a full-size drawing. Imagine the scale writing that out, scale 1:1, kind of thing. And we didn't do that, but you can get a sense of the very fine site and the beauty of the river here. You can see the mill dam and the pond, all viewable out at the point, and the other apertures through which the river is viewed here. And I'm happy to say that this scheme has been completed in January, and the museum has taken occupancy and is currently working on installing the collections within the building, both changing exhibits and the permanent collection. So I don't have any photograph of that, maybe just one piece initially installed here, but this would seem like a good opportunity to show you the building, and in particular to show you the building as it looks from the river and from downtown across the river, in the sense in which the building is attempting to become part of this river valley, forming an edge to the water and following its shape quite closely as it passes through the city, and the form of the different apertures that have been cut into this solid here. The curve, which is this very slight movement in plan, turns out to be a big one in the elevation of the building. These fiber cement panels that we use a shiny one, and so it's frequently on this southwestern corner, you'll get these glitter of light that really emphasizes the curve of that surface, and it's something that you notice, that it's curving of the building next to the curving of the road forced by the curving of the river. At the other end of the building, you can see the main entry aperture. You can get a sense of the two-story atrium in there and a balcony that allows you to get up into the building and look way down the river. And here you can see the historic train station that's visible about one of the back apertures on this other corner of the building. The point of the building, which is actually a 22.5-degree angle here formed by the site, is actually one of its most dynamic spots. This very acute angle facing the Highway 33 corner, and as I mentioned, it's the stairway here. So from the first floor, you take a stairway up, and this is the platform of the landing. So you're elevated slightly. You can look down upon the river and off the mill pond and in the distance, finally climbing to the second floor and getting a breather, for example, after you've looked at the collection. And this is also a room in which glass artwork by Wisconsin artists will be exhibited there. One of the things that we've really attempted to do here, especially in a team led by project architect Pete Balistreri and working with another project architect Russ Drury on this, is try to bring detailing that really works with the design ideas to bear. For example, when we talk about cutting away or removing a piece of the building, we're attempting to then drive glass right on up to the sky, which aren't easy details to do. But I think again and again we've tried in this simple building, when a difficult, challenging detail was required, to really make it happen. For example, Russ Drury led the detailing on the point, which you can say is really pointy, you know. I mean, you could use models this thing as a knife, you know. And here you can see very heavy gauge pre-finished sheet metal bent into this shape, silicone structural glass with double glazed lights that are adhered to heavy gauge bent profiles. So very challenging detailing to make a single, very simple building form work. So it took this level of complexity, I think, to produce a very simple and minimal looking building in many conditions. You'd hardly imagine that a detail like that supports a visually simple thing. The building is a very low-cost building, surprisingly, and Pete and Russ and I struggled with a building that was initially for a $200 a square foot building for about 32,000 square feet, and eventually wound up for about $225 as the finished building. To give you an idea, this is the same size as Herzog and Demeron's new building for the Parish Art Museum out in New England, right? I think that building is slightly larger at 33 or 34,000 square feet. And that building was initially scheduled at $75 million, which was slightly over 10 times the cost of our same size building. And they reduced or slashed the cost of that building to a very economical $27 million for the same size building as we built a $7 million building. So I hope it helps put it in context. This is a low-cost building by any museum standards, basically 1/4 the cost of Herzog and Demeron's slash-rate version. And it's clad, for example, in pre-finished cement board. This is an afternoon sunlit photograph that shows golden glow on it. But these are 1.5 by 6 foot long fiber cement pre-finished panels. And they're actually done in 3 different colorations to produce that subtle mottled effect, the effect of a very careful color variation in it. You can get a sense of the detailing that Pete's team put together here on the cladding of the building, which includes a really well-insulated envelope, all exterior insulation, a drainage and pressure equalization cavity, and these fiber cement panels, the joints of which were really carefully worked through in both plan, section, and elevation with, for example, a stainless steel reveal base that allows this insulation to pass down continuously and clad the foundation of the wall. But again, I think it's the transparency of this corner that is catching a lot of attention on people, the extreme thinness of the building there, and the amazing ability to actually go out into this teeny little triangle as a room. That's a really dynamic experience. And the very difficult details that supported it, I think drawn again by Russ Drury in this case, where you can get a sense that from the steel structure of the building, there are long cantilevers that hold the curtain wall way out from the structure of the building and allow a void to pass all the way up even above the roofing condition. So this is a mullion that's actually the top of which perfectly flush with the roof condition and allows that glass to essentially go as tall to the edge of the sky as we've been able to do it, allowing that excavation from the mass of the building to be fairly complete. And at the other end, at the entrance here, we have both rain cover, a long cantilever that produces it, and sort of a distinctive and dynamic aperture that's clearly about the entry, with the stairs up from the street level parking and from the pedestrian bridges that cross to downtown, and from the new parking lots that the city has built immediately to our south in this condition. Immediately upon entering, it's clear that this building is a piano nobile building. That is a building where the main floor is elevated to the second level. And this is what you see at the moment of entry. You can pay your ticket or show your ID more typically off to the right here. But you understand immediately it's about rising on up. And this stairway is carefully curved. This is the curved wall mirroring the bend of the river. So it helps to take this stairway and transform it into a really unique experience. Again, referencing the curve in the river and sliding along that curving shape, as you can see. And at the top, this gleaming entryway of glass here, that's the entrance to the permanent collection. So immediately upon entry, I'm trying to show your destination, suggest that the art is on this elevated platform, that you must rise on up to see it, and immediately show you exactly where your destination is in the distance. Pete Balistreri detailed the magnificent stairs here with precast treads, ground here with acid-etched nosings, perforated risers that allow the kind of transparency we're after, and double plate steel stringer detailing that allows the insertion of a channel to receive a structural glass railing. So a level of detailing that is very expensive just for the moment of the stairs, but I think trying to find moments like this where you can really display a sense of excellence and a really well-made thing and appreciate it as you rise on up to the second floor. At the second floor, you see not only the entrance to the permanent collection, but some other conditions. One of them, a big balcony, from which behind me there's this view out over the city and the river, and also a changing gallery. And one of the things you can also get a sense of in the building here is that you can get a sense of these series of planes that form the fabric of the galleries, 30 foot on center, and form these series of ever-diminishing galleries to the north, ever larger to the larger changing gallery here. Here's the stairway that rises from the entrance below and rises to enter the permanent collections here. The second floor, you can see there's almost nothing but gallery in this building, with a very little bit of open to below space at this stairs and atrium, and at that point stairs there. There's an elevator, and that's about it for service. And the only other thing here is actually a unique kind of gallery that shows a growing trend in the museum world to be able to take our storage of art that would normally be in the basement somewhere and open it up to public view, such that we have a series of transparent grid racks on which hundreds of paintings, the entire collection of the museum, will be held. and you can step up to these glass walls and look into the private vault, as it were. See the good stuff in the back that you could never see before. I remember the first time I got in the museum's vault, and I said, is there any way we can show this cool site to the general public? And working with the museum staff and board members, we finally made it happen here. This is the changing gallery, where they'll have a show that will generally have about 90-day durations, 4 of them per year typically. Here is that still developing storage building, and you can see we're going to have hanging racks here in which there will be a series of transparent grid racks, some with 10 or so paintings hung on them. And every day museum staff will draw out a random series of racks, so every day you can get a different sense of the vastness of the collection, much of which is borrowed from county courthouses and libraries from across Wisconsin that might own 2 to 3 excellent paintings and don't have the ability to take care of them. And all this stuff will be on view in this exposed storage. Arriving at the top of the stairs, again, here's this balcony that, again, looks at the river flowing off in the distance and downtown and some of its beautiful buildings. You can also get a sense to which the planar language of the building is expressed as these series of planes, 2 foot thick, drive through the building, and we're always exposing their ends such that you can understand their nature. And also, they never touch the ceiling, as it were. With a 16-foot high ceiling, we have 12-foot high gallery planes that rise through the building. And we try to do a number of things with these gallery planes. One of them is, like in this changing gallery, we let through just some peaks of natural light that come in from some of our window apertures, pass over these gallery planes and through clear stories and into the gallery. But we also do lighting in the top of these planes. We have indirect lighting, which has actually 10 settings. They're on the brightest setting here, and I think the museum curators will slowly find the right balance of indirect lighting on the ceilings here. But we have this support lighting that will work in addition to the spotlighting that many museums use solely and produces very grim and dark galleries without general illumination here of the type you can see that we've hidden in the tops of these walls. But another thing that we did with this wall is we've been able to bring all of our mechanical services together into the thickness of the walls. So the walls contain a return air plenum and a supply air shafts as well. So all of our supply air comes out of a reveal at the bottom of the walls. And that is a displacement ventilation system. So we're able to deliver chilled, heated, and humidified or dehumidified air low at the building. We're also not blowing air across the artwork, which can create static charges and cause dust to cling to the work. But also we're delivering this air close to where people use it, so we can deliver, for example, warmer air in summer rather than blowing air down from the ceiling that has to be chilled like another 10 degrees. It also produces a visually simple ceiling. We have no mechanical systems in the ceiling, no grills, no return air slots. We're able to produce a visually simple thing and hide all of our mechanical within the volume of these walls with return air grills hidden in the top of the walls throughout the building. And here's that 2-story atrium, and this is a gallery for a annual Wisconsin Achievement Award, Lifetime Achievement Award for artists, and also huge walls for major art displays of a changing character. We're going to have a cafe, a museum shop, and space for events down in this atrium and overlooking from this balcony above. The changing gallery is one of the largest galleries here. And again, the theme of these planes is continued. We continue delivering indirect lighting and all of our mechanical systems through the thickness of these planes and exhibiting art on them at the same time. And you can get a sense of the simple white box character of them. However, how much these clear stories bring. They allow these rooms to breathe to a degree. That's the blue light at the end of the day over the river that's peeking into this gallery. So you can get a sense of what it's like outside from these galleries and have a sense of that there's a room next door and that something is happening there. Again, allowing these rooms to breathe in a very real sense. The main galleries, and I don't have great photographs, these are just shots that Pete and I have taken, by the way. You can get a sense, and these are colors selected by the last museum curator, that might have been a little bright in their tonation, but I think the new director has promised to calm them slightly in the finished version. But you can get a sense of these perimeter passageways, the freestanding planes, delivery of the light and all the air within them, and the small to large galleries, and how some of the apertures play effect in the internal plan. For this is the aperture that looks at the historic train station, for example, occurring at the end of this enfilade. So all the way down at the end, there's a moment where you can see outside. The museum breathes for a moment, and we have a sense of relief to it. Here's one of the smaller galleries. We've also developed movable panels that can be picked up and moved around with a hand truck, so they can change these galleries over time. And these movable panels are not in their final positions. And the lights are on a little too bright in this photo. But all this tuning will be going on in the next month or so. Here at the end is the entrance to that triangular stairway. Excuse me, wrong way. And you can get a sense in that triangular stairway as you're finally able to leave the gallery coming out of the last plane and step outside of the gallery and look way down the river valley, look onto some future sculpture gardens here, and see some of the first art installations by significant Wisconsin artists going on in the building. This stairway winds back downstairs and turns back upon itself and delivers you into the single-loaded corridor here. And by the way, the gallery planes continue to drive right down through reveals in the ceiling, showing up in the same colors that they exhibit on the upper level here. Again, with this long horizontal aperture referencing this community gallery, which might have student shows and regional, like watercolor association shows that don't need light protection and can be visible even at night as you drive by the museum. The first floor is all about service support. You might be surprised to find in an art museum today there are 50% galleries and no more, typically less than that. And there's everything from the entrance special events atrium here, space for catered events, a gift shop, a pair of classrooms, for example, a children's and service corridor, toilet rooms, and other service spaces. Behind the scenes support like a place to receive exhibits and curate them, a paper archive here, the mechanical space that operates the whole building, administrative offices and conference space, and a multi-purpose room, and then this 10-foot wide gallery that serves as a corridor overlooking the river in the distance, and the curving stairs and the point stairs in this building. For example, this is the children's corridor. Kids can come in even a separate entrance, hang their coats on the wall, use the toilet rooms, go into their kids' classroom, do some artwork, and then hang them and light them on these display galleries here, all without unduly trampling the museum visitors out in the regular museum beyond. So there's a lot of complexity to the museum planning that these plans might belie themselves. Down this corridor, the single-loaded corridor, you're able to return to the atrium underneath the stairs. And I just wanted to give you a couple views of this event atrium. And we're currently working on some furniture like the check-in and admissions desk and the cafe table in the shop that should be up and running in the next couple months in the new building. And some views of the building at night. So hopefully you have an opportunity to see this building in the next month as it opens to the public on April 3rd. With that, I wanted to turn my attention here quickly to an On the Boards project, and one that you're all doubtless very familiar with. It's the Milwaukee Art Museum. The first of many lives of it was visible here in the 1950s Eros Saarinen War Memorial. That was both a memorial to many wars and Milwaukee's art museum located in the base of this building. And you can also get a sense here of the radical transformation that occurred over time from when Milwaukee's verdant green lakefront came right on up and sort of swept up into the Saarinen and right up onto the Mason Street Bridge. How different things are today, in which that green connection has been sundered, hopefully not forever, and I'll show you a proposal on that in a moment. And also Saarinen's connection to the water and to the bluff that used to come up under the Saarinen has also been sundered by a 1970s addition here. And what I've been asked to do with the Art Museum is to renovate and add to, make modest additions, the 1970s wing and the 1950s wing, most of which has not been extensively renovated since they originally opened in the 50s or 70s. The Calatrava Changing Gallery, Museum Shop, and restaurant will remain unchanged in the work here. And what we're really focusing on, the world here that is not as happy as it once was. I had to show you, the brave new world of Pontiac as it emerged in 1955 here in Milwaukee. If you're confused, this is a left-right flipped image. It took me a long time to figure that out. But you can get a sense of how the bluff once passed right on up to the Saarinen. There were stairs here that you could get up and onto the Mason Street level. So you could actually get off here and get onto the lakefront. And the sense to which the building hovered out over the green verdant lakefront. And I regret to tell all of you that's been utterly lost today. There's a similar view. There's a new Pontiac there. I don't know what the hell it is. And this 70s edition has removed that hill. This grass used to slope on up and all the way up to the Mason Street level. Sadly, all lost today. And so here's the historic fabric that I've been asked to try to improve. And by the way, almost all this is today spandrel glass. There's almost none of this huge glass wall that looks out at the lake that you can see out of. And they've installed paintings right on up to the glass surface, essentially, and don't want to give up on that. So one of the real questions here was how we could be in the permanent collection of the Milwaukee Art Museum and actually know that you're on the lake somehow and understand and have access to the beauty of the waterfront, sort of beauty that's been entirely lost today within the permanent collection here within the 1970s wing. This is a project I've been working on for the last year and a half, I think, with Rob Gamperl, who is here today, and also Pao Yang, who's done a lot of work on some of the renderings that you're going to see. You also have a sense of the challenge that's before us here to try to produce some plans that can bring about the repair of this thing. I mentioned the glass wall that isn't a glass wall on the lake, and also there's a sculpture court from the 70s work that has never been successful as a sculpture court and has sadly leaked for the last 25 years, creating everything from buckled floors to work on actual $10 million artworks, dripping on the painting, and to try to finally bring an end to some of the leaks that sunken non-sculpture court have created. There are also other issues with it. One of the notions of the Saarinen, he lifted up this building, so from the city you could pass under and down to the lake and get to the lakefront. And in a very real sense, this courtyard sunders that relationship. You cannot pass through there. And in fact, from the Saarinen courtyard, you look through 1, 2, and then 3 levels of vertical picket railing. And they form interference with each other and moire patterns, as it were. And to try to reduce or remove that and to try to produce a kind of continuity that Saarinen originally envisioned here. Right now you have to move around the courtyard, as it were, in a fairly circuitous path that we're going to try to address, as I'll show you in a moment. One of the other issues in the plan is the kind of labyrinthian quality that exists in the current Milwaukee Art Museum permanent collection with the Calatrava here off the screen to the south on the bottom. For example, there's a little bit of a window where you can look at the lake, and if you want to go to the back galleries here, I'll trace the route. you come up here, you dive down, you dive back up, you dive back down, dive back up. It's extremely difficult. And there are galleries here that no one's been to in weeks because they can't find them. And there's no clear wayfinding here. I should also point out that while Saarinen produced knockout panels that did surprisingly call for and allow an Eastern addition that set about his ruination, I think, you notice these passageways didn't get followed, that this passageway doesn't align with the ones that Saarinen planned. And it further confuses the wayfinding through the building. And one of the major things that we've proposed here is the advent of crystal clear enfilade wayfinding, in which gallery rooms have a series of aligned portals that have clear circulation routes that plow right through the building, through the Saarinen work, through the 1970s work, and out to views of the lakefront, where we're proposing a modest 40-foot deep glass atrium addition that would be a heated sculpture court and would allow for a cafe from which you can see the Calatrava and be about 18 feet from the water's edge here. One of the things we're actually going to do is go back to Saarinen's concrete work and cut those knockout panels out in the places that matches the holes in the concrete core from the 70s work, and in that way finally create passageways through the collection, and also extending the main eastern concourse of the Calatrava all the way through the depth of the collection, such that you can finally find every gallery in the permanent collection. I hate to tell you, but as an architect, I've been lost in the permanent collection once, and it wasn't a happy moment. And I read plans really well. At least I tell myself that. Also here, one of the things that we have in the 1970s building, and by the way, there was some renovation of the Saarinen work in which he took this character and plowed it into the Saarinen 50s building. We have classic 1970s galleries that unfortunately has a kind of grimness and dimness to it. One of the features is a very dark orange floor, and I'm here to tell you that there are very few paintings that look great on an orange floor. And we have worked with this beautiful end grain floor, and we're going to maintain it throughout the existing galleries, but we have found a way to finish it without the orange coloration. And so we're going to have a beautiful light blonde floor, and we've done our first experiments with it. Also is the gridded ceiling that you would think is a lighting grid, but it isn't. Notice that the lighting grid has to lay on top of this thing. So it's a lighting grid that doesn't light up. And it also exposes a lot of dusty ductwork and adds, I think, a kind of grimness again, because a lot of the darkness that you see here is the dark ceiling reflected in the reflected floor. So basically our proposal here is to refinish all the floors, remove the orangeness of the color, and one of the things we're going to get is from spots and downlighting, have a lot of bounce off the new lighter floor, and do finished ceilings and have indirect lighting off of them as well. And try to produce galleries here that do not have the kind of permanent grimness and dullness that many of the 70s and 50s galleries currently have. We're also at least contemplating some restorations of the Saarinen galleries. These are photographs of the original Saarinen galleries as they were in the 50s, some of them with incredible luminous ceilings, by the way. And we've been discussing about the restoration of some of these. And some of these ceilings are also extant, some of them above hung ceilings from the 70s, and we think we can restore some of these ceilings to their original conditions fairly easily, and also restore the original oak parquet floor, because we have an internationally significant architect doing a nationally significant building here. I think some of these spaces are due for a kind of restoration that they've never seen. We've seen a whole sequence of architects willing to treat them fairly carelessly. I hope to treat at least some of them as preservation projects. On the existing second floor, the labyrinthine quality is even worse. The existing exterior courtyard forms a barrier that you must constantly move around, and the wayfinding is nearly impossible. Also, over time, many spaces that were original Saarinen galleries have become transformed into offices and storage spaces. I'm happy to say we're going to be able to move those office spaces off campus and also remove art storage from them and restore all of the original galleries to the original Saarinen extent. And also by enclosing this as a gallery, allow the same enfilade passageways to exist as they exist on the first floor, on the second floor. So people will use the same wayfinding that they use down below to find their way here. And these end and balconies that overlook a two-story atrium through glass walls out to Lake Michigan. So these movements will be rewarded with a view out to the lake and to a sculpture atrium down below. These are some early views that we've worked up, and you can see rather than the sea of concrete with a big open courtyard in it, we've also looked at bringing a series of green roofs to relieve the blankness of the current rooftop there, still leaving it an open to the public plaza as it is today, and also bringing in some works of art. Bringing in text artist, nationally renowned or internationally renowned Jenny Holzer, to do paths in which she does text inscriptions that would be a work of art devoted to the war memorial experience. Saarinen's original idea that this would be a place where the arts and the war memorial experience could bring people together and draw those two experiences together, that hasn't happened here, and we're going to make another stab at it, as difficult as that is. You can also see the 40-foot glass addition here, which is a ceramic fritted glass that goes from clear down at the bottom, ever-increasing dot screen, to all white at the top here. And that is our solar shading and our glare control, and allowing some greater openness of the building. It's like putting on a 40-foot deep set of sunglasses and allowing the permanent collection to open more to these views of the lakefront. Developing a new plaza here and a series of stairs on which you could sit, and having a cafe and that people could bring food out here. And this is the water's edge right there, bringing this building out to the water in a way and allowing for temporary exhibits of sculpture, for example, a way that hasn't been allowed anywhere here. At the same time as we're doing this addition, you can see it there, I'm trying very hard to satisfy my client's program and also satisfy the needs of this particular site, which already has a kind of pitched battle of the masters, right? And it's a battle in which I don't want to add a third player. So I'm treating this addition as a simple formal extrusion of the 70s wing. But to attempt to lighten it, it has a kind of leaden quality here that doesn't enhance the Saarinen. The Saarinen used to hover over that bluff. And I'm hoping that in a variety of ways, especially with the detailing of this thing, that is to be cable net glass, by the way. That is no vertical mullions, that all the pieces of glass pinned to stretched half-inch stainless cables. So there'd be uninterrupted panoramic views out to the lake. And in this view, I think you can really get a sense of the idea of transparent glass at the base and then solid opaque at the top, with a gradiated dot screen in between as the solar control solution, as the glare solution, and as the bird impact solution. This is a glass wall that will have a ceramic frit dot screen on it that birds can see and avoid collision with the glass wall. And I think this is a problem that our profession needs to rise through, and this is a solution that hopefully will go a long way in this regard. Inside, we have not only floor space for temporary sculpture installations and a cafe on which you can see the Calatrava, but also 3 great wall planes. Shown here, the museum owns 3 instructions for executing lost silhouette works. And one of the intention is to execute them here it was Sol's intention that he not actually paint or draw them, but future artists could actually install his work, and they would be original Sol Lewitz. And so we hope to install them as part of a future exhibit here. Here you can also see the passageways into the permanent collection and these balconies from the second floor collection. You can step out on them, see the lake below, look at sculpture, really breathe for a moment, and then return to the collection refreshed. Here's the new cafe, which has a view of one of the best pieces in the permanent collection, actually, and a fabulous view of water and some other stuff, which is, And you can also get a sense of the interior, which, again, may be clear for the bottom 6 feet, and then a slowly developing gradiated dot screen that's 100% white opaque at the top and at the spandrel condition, and then these white cables upon which the double pane glass is pinned. I mentioned the rooftop, and we want to continue the tradition of fireworks events and weddings and major civic events on this, but again, find some relief to this. We're building a roof on this and finding a place for a new changing gallery on the second floor of this permanent collection building to try to bring people up to the second floor, a greatly under-visited part of the Milwaukee Art Museum collection. And we think a changing gallery will help to relieve that. And these are our initial drawings for the changing gallery. You can see the pump up and those ceilings up on the roof allows for taller ceiling spaces for larger artwork. This is a curation of one of the initial exhibits in this show. And you can get a sense of this changing gallery, which will be, by the way, the largest column-free void anywhere in the museum. So this will be the most adaptable gallery, other than the Calatrava changing gallery. But in the 50s and 70s work, there's no space that's larger than 24 foot long without a column in it. And here we'll finally get some 40-foot clear spans, well over 120 foot in length. That'll be column-free and allow the curators a kind of flexibility they simply don't currently have. I mentioned bringing in Jenny Holzer, and we've had several meetings with her. And the first time we asked her about this, she said, "So, how did you know I'm working on the text of warfare?" So she's been working on this piece for several years, not knowing where she can install it. And we hope to bring a really nationally significant work of art here. And by the way, these are the same paths that work on the first floor, the second floor, and here on the roof that would bring you from the city right on out to a new glass railing overlooking the lake. And again, where there's currently that pit that you have to move around and look through layers of metal railing, you will finally, from the city, have these paths that go directly to the water's edge in that elevated position with Jenny Holzer's hopefully significant work of art under your feet. And bringing in some green roofs to, again, hopefully relieve some of the currently fairly harsh character of this rooftop without bringing a lot of architecture or landscape that would obstruct the monumental horizontality of this thing. Something I think is very powerful, something we're trying to continue and maintain and not lose that character. I want to finish with a couple sketches for the future here. And one of the real problems are these surface lots that exist to the north of the War Memorial and the Art Museum that has really served to ruin the idea of this green verdant lakefront coming down and reaching the museum or in some way reaching the downtown. They've forever sundered it. And we've done a sketch here which suggests that all that parking would go underneath a green roof that would be high at this end and come up to this rooftop plaza and pitch on down to the level of the lagoons down at the Vietnam vets, such that from these parks there'd be yet another park that would slowly pitch on up and deliver you right to the city. So from the city you could finally get onto the lakefront, something you simply can't do right now. That's been sundered forever, it seems. And so here would be future museum expansion and parking expansion here, and all of this under a lawn with a glass wall looking out at the lake from that edge. and hopefully we could recover with this something of that lost first slide of that verdant green lakefront that reaches the Art Museum and the War Memorial, and this might be parking and museum under there at some point in the future. So that's a glimpse at the future, and hopefully we'll be moving further on this commission this year, and hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years you can see some work brought to fruition on this project. But with that, let me thank you for your time and invite you to reception out in the Commons and a chance to see the show on that first building, Museum Wisconsin Art. But I'll take any questions if there are any here. Thank you very much.